Hey, welcome to another episode. Today, also, it's an exciting episode. We think we have found some great discoveries for black when it comes to our portion of regrowth chemicals, which is harder to find in black than it is in white. Just so happens that water breathers and underwater fish breathers, fire breathers, and now compact earth breathers are all going to be a different snorkel. When going off our track valve, it just so happens that many times over we're going to build sediments now underneath growths and different layers of growth. One great note for black thus far in the discoveries that we have been able to find was that when we went back into our charts, checked off what was the successful win for our skinny people and for some of our growth spurs that we will be using by tomorrow. Some of them being related straight to the Catholic Church, if they are not divided enough to have very northern, also veggie eating can be added into some of the attributes of regrowth stimuli. But where they're getting those regrowths from and how people are able to mac out on those things we think are coming through some of the Egyptian timeline. Thus far, your immunities the last time you weren't seen, and those immunities go through soft flesh and they go through hard bone. So the last time you weren't seen, it's going to leave an immunity. It's going to leave an immunity in both flesh and bone. And it is the bones we think that are going to be radioactive. When you're a burnt victim, your bones produce more flesh for you. Um, you can make up your mom and your dad, we suspect. And right outside of India, we suspect where a Hindu Vedic, the VDC, meet the Asian front line is where they come up with these stellar ideas of the bones reinventing their mom and their dad. Other normal philosophies claim that the fungal spores that we are around have to go for number one, that you should always feel like you want to be here, that if you have arthritis around your knuckles, what we think it is that it is the parasitical plants and animals around you who go after the bone marrow also. So bone marrow can both grow flesh, and bone marrow in this sense can turn into a zero warp, which can actually turn invisible. Had you said enough times that I don't want to be here at the groove, which is an inner groove, that's then going into the seed and recognizing the seed itself as having a inner component. Once you can look inside your own body, you might be able to break down certain materials like beans and rice in the right and proper way. Next, what was so very interestingly groovy is that prayer before conception, um, a part of of our program is where we've discovered both sides. So, prayer before conception of white is going to come out as a very stern, constricted, and goes in and simply studies chemical breathers. Usually gets a win for themselves outside of our reach, which is now within the Egyptian bracket and the David bracket stuff, um, and the Miriam's bracket and the Solomon bracket. However, we're just getting to understand these things. Prayer before conception for black usually is going to come out strongly in his shoulders. We like to note a few things on the tree diagram that we have for now, prayer before conception module, black. Before that, it was that skinnies would come out with the more squeezy spores if they were towards Europe, would have more chemicals feeling in a European base. Doesn't mean that they have more pride or more capabilities than anybody. We're also going to zodiac signs, which have frowns and smiles within a chemical base for our first zodiac signs. We think in the future, zodiac signs, which are coming from within some of the chemicals, if you're strong enough to go in there, you would study the Bible and claim that blood was also part of life. That certain Hindu Vedic people can actually make a gimp leg grow from accumulating enough hyper spored zodiac signs from within. So they go further and further in extent. A very nice, plain, common thread of a frown and a smile in the zodiac sign. Chemicals. Right before conception, again, is going to go towards the shoulders of black, and what we have around that palm trunk, which we now call the shoulders, a thick base. Sometimes we simply don't know anything as a broad reach. But what we were finding is the jelly, the jelly squid in the abdomen are connected to the shoulders. We thought we might have mentioned that in prior programs, that the shoulders are definitely related to the strings of a puppet, and a puppet master goes straight to the abdomen. Where in our portion of the fumes of the desert, that is just knowing where these people wound up at and how to go back to. We just also are going to note Of course, no evil intended upon them, but that prayer before conception is even uh, line is going to give us two different modules. And of course, going to the shoulders immediately led to the fact that the old folks community in black might as well have a brazen chin, could be 90 years old and look 20, that many of their growth spores coming from their own loins seem to tighten up a lot. We did the other program where the chemicals and chemicals, two chemicals would look like a bone over in Europe. But then you go over the organs and you're getting rid of wrinkles. If you go over the organ portion, you're also giving back that was is the time taken away from you. That pig itself is one of the most detestable things, and that people are dying, I guess, from pig poison. Just to know a few variables, and then going to the equation. We did find was that the Vietnamese people, since we're going to be called tri-state people here, have a time frame of prayer and crying, and they cried a lot in between two different in between two different people, Africa and Europe, and it just so happens that you can spend a lot of time crying in a temple in Vietnam, because they cried a lot in between these two people. They have a story about of one of their black sites which has like little legs, and he does a frog dance, and he found that these exceptionally young features still come out in Asian people all the time. And what is very odd is that black and Asian don't usually connect from within any of these oracles. All the people are actually very, very different feeling when it comes to one thing, which is breathing. It usually leads to another thing, which is water, which leads to yet another thing. Why not attack black's water if black is a squeeze towards breather and his water's upside down? One of the reasons is that if you're mixed enough, you will say that my black side acts like himself and looks like some of these sporacles, the tooth and different things like that. And what is interesting about the water, if we're dealing with the water system which comes out of the earth, it doesn't necessarily say that it isn't looking like or acting like that. In our world, who is able to put together little patches of black and see what they act like in a mixed gnome. Here's the best part is that China thinks that way, but towards white in a sense, and cannot define the topic water. We think because they both have two different waters that they're producing bone marrow chepsticks, and then you're supposed to go to your peeing organ where the bird, a fungal growth, parasitical plant agent, or animal agent, pees in his rear end, and therefore all the older folks and younger folks have a hard time peeing, and then they die. Okay, and so when you have new bone regrowths, however, right now we're suspecting that it's coming from two different ports, and that the bones are also simply dualistic. We're finding a lot of agents within China to show that if they did have polar opposite water, that they're still the inheritors of the tallest mountain or bone to exist. But we're going to look into that in a later date. Right now, it's all about these legs and these baby frog legs, and the fact that if you're budding African and towards the shapes of youngness, that what's interesting about our pray before conception module is not only did it go to the shoulders and show the jelly squid abdomen portion with shoulders tightly woven in its own communicated valve, and we're into breathing very deeply, allowing for the original atoms, which means atom could live for a long time, allowing that circuitry to go in one whole track valve, not letting anything clot up. It has to be a track valve because bone marrows are now producing flesh. The other bone marrows are turning into warp zero. That is at the questioning of the parasitical plants and animals, do you still want to be here, which are our surrounding areas. If we find 5 bands reconnect for any reason, they're usually very powerful. And if they deal with some of these bone marrows, we get arthritis, go to the cold, and it hurts around your knuckles. Those are bands that are bone marrows that if they come back strongly, which deals with the word of the Lord, suspectfully just breathe narrowly in there. You take a new track valve. You don't just do a one track these days. You never claim mom and dad like the Bible says. And you stop thinking one tracked, you won't clot up where your bones are producing flesh. Burnt victims produce flesh from their bone marrow. They go into shock. Their bones are warping at radiant speed. My mom, my dad, the creator of everything, and these things are growing like little zodiac signs which connect it, which we're trying to talk about earlier. All people thus far in our clientele are invited who have a medical issue, because most of their medical doctrines will be used as in the future zodiac sign chemical, meaning they don't come out until the thing is meant to come out in the medical world. Aha. So the transformation stages and how clean it is to be in Tibet and have no knowledge, just have no knowledge. And that it was easier in the tri-state to mix more than it was for a two state to mix more. And they could go deeper in the sport and mix more. And by having no knowledge, they were able to keep their original families intact thus far along the border of the tri-state. So having no knowledge as an overall yoga practice can overall circumference the body and doesn't go too deep into sports. However, wherever there is a knock, you may answer. Okay, back to the little legs and the fact that blacks pray before conception is giving us something opposite in whites pray before conception, and white spray before conception is giving us a chemical, and black spray before conception is giving us a shoulders chemical, a ingrowth. Not as much juicy liquid to use. It usually keeps black in a one-track valve, which we were just trying to talk about before. When you have so many other track valves to get used to these days, um, and how what was the phenomenal study was not just the shoulders for our people trying to figure out which way do we go. We're going to follow our own kids, pray before conception, check out their testimonies, listen to the radiance that was going on at chemotherapy, burnt victims, and the radiance that's going on in the shoulders at pray before conception. We're also going to look at these new gimp legs, which Vietnamese people claim are the real black. They do waka waka dances, and they just do frog in out in out. Well, black's legs are becoming brand new after prayer before conception, and it has a story that also is rooted into what little frog legs look like in Vietnamese people. But the child from within is also radiating light and aura. We want to keep those things in mind. Um, okay, today was a great day. It was great. It was a great day to come up with some great ideas for also our black side, to make sure that the old folks community can be looked at. And so today was a good day for our research, and we're getting and doubling into the black side. Okay, I guess that's going to be it for now, and I look forward to hearing from you next time. Over and out.